the recording session right now. And the recording session of this online session here is also with a transcription and transcription notes. Yes. The duration for this session is 2 hours, and yes, and I believe we will try to make it within those 2 hours. At the end of the session, I will also like us to discuss if there was any questions, and if you have any other need for information. So we will take it at the end of the session and throughout the session also. So we started the recording session, and it's time for me to share my screen. I will start sharing my presentation. The presentation will of course be at your disposal. I will send it out to you after the session in a PDF format, so you will see all the slides, obviously, including the link for the recorded session. Okay? Good. You can write in the chat if you have anything at this point. I will now start sharing my session by sharing a window, which is my presentation. And now hopefully you will see, oops, you will see a shared window. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
That's good. And I hope I found the right logo. This is still your logo on your website. And Edina gave me a short presentation of your company. And I'm very excited about the potential of what Lean actually can do for a big company that handles logistics like you do and provides equipment and products for logistics, and a broad variation of services as well. And so we're going to look into that. As I said, my focus is on Lean administration, but I will also give you an insight in history, Lean history. And if that becomes a bit too long for you or boring, so please let me know and we will move on. So we can, of course, adjust on our way. I'm very impressed by your portfolio of products. Now you see this every day, but when I look into your products, I think this is really cool. You have ordinary setter wagons and you have containers, you have trailers and, you know, a broad variety of services also, all for transportation and logistics. And this also shows me that your variety of products and your services is quite modern. When we look at it from outside, you probably have another insight. I also see, when I look at your history, of course, a challenge of merging different companies from the outpoint, now German owned, but merging from different countries and factories. So that's, of course, a big challenge, working and getting maybe if you have an what do you call a challenge of cooperating, you might have a challenge of meeting the same standards across borders. And of course, language is also a barrier. But I believe that Lean can help you in many ways, and it is my aim to show you a variety from the Lean toolbox that hopefully will inspire you. Here's the agenda. We will start with Lean history, the usage of Lean in administration and administrative processes. I will give you a couple of examples on that. 5 Lean principles. I will touch base on that because it's a foundation for Lean, and maybe we'll give you some ideas of where this might guide you if you should embark on this journey. Also, we will, of course, I would say, which is the actually core of lean, that is, of course, the wasters. And we're going to talk about the wasters, and hopefully this can inspire you to actually put in different initiatives in that direction. So so this is the first half. And the next half will be lean in practice, where I will show you tools from the lean toolbox and give you examples as we go along. And at about 5 minutes to 11, I think we will close down. Maybe you have questions, and we might have some next steps to discuss. Yes? How are we doing so far? Is it too fast, too slow? Please unmute your microphone and you feel free to give me a comment.
Just go ahead, Peter.
That's good. Okay, thank you. I would like to just introduce myself shortly before we go on, and I have a couple of questions for you to speak a little, and we can discuss your expectations and your experience with lean as such. So just have a look at this picture. This is actually me teaching lean. Not long ago, a month ago, I was at a factory in Denmark, and what you see, I'm inside the factory floor, and we're set up to do lean. And as you see in the picture over here, we have a lot of flips, and I have a lot of toys with me to, make not me work too much. I don't like working too hard, but of course, the participants being on the factory floor, actually observing wasters and making value stream mapping, which is one of our topics today. Just to show you, when working at IBC in Kolding and going out to customers and meeting customers like you, it is, when working with lean, very important that you're close to the scene where the things actually happen. And that's the first lesson, if you like, or my take on lean is that if you go down this road, you really need to be out there where things happen and have a look for yourself and discuss on site. And that is really beneficial and creates a good atmosphere and close contact to those who actually are involved with these issues on a daily basis. In this session, you of course know each other. It is a reminder to me also who is present and who is not. But I think it would be a bit foolish to ask you to present yourself to each other. So I will move on to ask you to unmute your microphones and tell me a little about what you know about lean. So if I look down the participant list, Kate, what? So
I don't know something about lean, no. But yesterday I read something in internet, okay. And I hope it's really positive.
Yes. So your first impression was positive.
Yes.
All right. Nice. How about you, Jan? Have you heard about lean?
Yeah, I heard, but I came to learn to listen.
Yeah, okay.
To listen more and get involved into this.
Okay. Interesting. Christina and Sigurd, you're sitting together. What are your thoughts about lean? What do you know about lean?
I don't know nothing. I have spent few minutes to look at this presentation. I think that this happened in Toyota, yeah, at first.
Yeah, that's true. Oh. It happened in Toyota, yeah.
I drive Toyota, so it's interesting for me.
All right. So what have you heard, Natalia?
This is something new for me.
Yeah.
But as I understood, it's like a magic circle.
Yeah.
That helps us to make our work more efficient.
Okay. That's a nice expression, magic circle. Okay. Edina, what have you heard?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's not long a time ago I had a 1 day's course in at EBC, and there I got inspiration that I was also aware that lean is not something that only one employee could work. It's something like a culture that all organization should implement, and there I got idea to have my colleagues on this so we can make some continuous changes in organization in future.
That's okay. Thank you.
I'm optimistic. I think it's very relevant. The subject is something that we could learn from and something we should work on in future, definitely.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Edina. And you use the word continuous, which is actually a very common lean terminology. Continuous improvement comes from the Japanese word kaizen. I'll write it in the chat. Kaizen, which is, a continuous improvement for the better, which is the odd, if you like, but Japanese way of saying things. And so you're absolutely right, Sigurd. The origin of lean is from Japan, but with influence from the US. I will touch base on that in a little while. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I will move on to the next slide, and we will touch base on lean history to give you a short introduction. And please let me know if you had enough. But to me, as a teaching lean and being also a lean consultant, it's my experience that knowing something about the background also gives a understanding of the tools later on. So that's why I'm bringing it on, but feel free to interrupt me. The history of lean, if you are like this in your day-to-day work and not accepting the good advice from people just on the other side of the desk, having actually good ideas on how to be more efficient and having ideas to improve, you're too busy. And I bring this drawing because well, Lego is of Danish origin, so that's one of the reasons. But I like this drawing because lean actually requires time. It requires that these people dragging along with the carriage looks behind and start talking to the people with the ideas, and understanding what they're doing is quite tedious. So it requires time, and it requires that we actually start talking about it and bring our efforts together. So what does lean actually mean? Well, I brought one of your nice set of wagons on the picture from one of the pictures from your website to start addressing lean and lean administration. What does it actually mean? Well, the English word for lean, maybe you know the terminology, lean and mean. And you are cutting off excessive weight in order not to be too heavy in your services. So I put it in brackets here. Slank is the Danish word for lean, and the English word is about cutting away unnecessary weight and fat, so you get your steak without very trimmed. So this is what this is about. Trimming your steak is a metaphor for trimming wasters. So it's that simple. And trimming wasters is about taking off waiting time, taking off storage, taking off interruptions, and creating a better flow in day-to-day work. So there's some cars behind animated, maybe you saw it, because now I'm gonna address some history topics and address the origin from Lean. What you see here on the picture is Taishi Ono, if I pronounce it right. Taishi Ono is, well, the father of the Lean that we know from Japan. And he didn't do it alone, but he was one of the co-writers behind a book called Toyota Production Systems, also known as TPS. So that is a book where he actually introduces the 7 original wasters for the first time. And what Taishi Ono is quoted to say is that all we do is to look at the timeline from the moment a customer gives us an order. That could be you taking an order from a customer, and to the actual point where we receive the payment, which some of you also do. And we reduce this timeline by eliminating non-value added waste, as he puts it in his Japanese terminology. Now, non-value added waste is, of course, a double meaning, and it means that we will reduce waste in order to make this timeline as short as possible. Because why should we have customers pay for waiting, or customers paying for you not having your tools in place and your spare parts in time? I know we are all challenged in logistics and getting parts in, and even more so at this point, recent 14 days. But nevertheless, this is what history about Lean will tell us, that this is the same dynamics that we're still focusing on in Lean administration. Here I put in examples. Here a house is ordered, materials is ordered, and now we are entering a timeline. And now a race starts, if you like, not to panic or to be stressed. Lean is not about stress, but it's about being efficient and making the flow as optimal as possible. So the order starts, drawings are being made. Now the build starts, the building site is prepared, foundation is laid. Now you obviously recognize these processes. This is the basic and nice thing about Lean, that we actually look at processes one at a time. And imagine this being a service process. You take the phone, you enter the order, you communicate with the customer, you start ordering spare parts, you contact an engineer to get a drawing, you push the order as a work task, and so forth. So it's about processes. And whenever these processes have a halt, when you recognize the waste, you will start looking at it and eliminate it. That's what Taishi Ono says. Yes. The post-war period obviously played a major role in the creation of Lean, because during World War II in Japan, the production apparatus was really destroyed. And not only that, the resources were scarce, not only resources for building cars or maintaining infrastructure in Japan, but also resources as in manpower. And this makes Taishi Ono think and forced him to be more, or forced Toyota, but other Japanese major companies, forced them to think more agile. but they were actually also very influenced by Americans and US. For instance, Edward Deming, who actually went to Japan post-war. 1947 was his first visit, and he visited Japan's industry, and they were very influenced by his way of thinking and performing, which he was a big influencer on the US war industry during World War II. So Japan was very interested in Deming's methods. And Deming is actually the father of one of our tools today, the PDCA cycle, also known as the Deming cycle. So this is the funny thing about this story. It is Japan and also Taishi Ono very inspired by the way that the Americans, all the way back from Ford, but especially in war history, the way that they actually was able to be efficient in the way they produced machines, ships, tanks, bullets, and was able to draw in new employees which have never been in the industry before and actually adapt them to production. So, but it's Taishi Ono who writes the book Kyoto Production System, and then it's actually the Americans once again, as I put in my slide, Warmark and Jones, which you see here. So right here, it is the author of the book, The Machine That Changed the World, two Americans, Warmark and Jones and Daniel Ross, but Warmark and Jones in particular, who made a reference to Taishi Ono's book. And by this book, The Machine That Changed the World, the reference is to Toyota. And that's how the Western industry and later on also services and administration actually started implementing lean in the 90s because of this book with reference to Taishi Ono and his work on the 7 wasters and layouts in production in Japan. So that completes the my history, the lean history part of this inspiration session. Let's talk about a couple of examples. I'm looking into the meeting room again and see if there are any questions at this time. So hopefully the history part was not. Was it too long? Sorry, Natasha, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, so far so good. You could continue. I don't know. I don't think we have questions to history. We're looking for practice. We're looking for like tools, you know. So
yes, yeah. we will get on to tools.
Yes.
So okay, very good. Thank you, Natasha. I will start giving you examples. We will get more hands-on, not hands-on, but I have a few exercises for you, so we can get into practical mode. Let me give you a couple of examples in lean administration and start looking into that. And reducing now lean administration. You see that many places. For instance, in Denmark, we see it in hospitals. For the last decade, hospitals, Danish hospitals, has taken in lean to be more efficient in healthcare. One of the examples I've taken in is to reduce waiting lists. Now, I mention waiting list, and instantly you should think waiting. That's a waste. That's one of the original wasters, waiting for something. Errors are another one, and we'll touch base on all wasters. But reducing waiting lists for CT scanning for cancer patients for 9 weeks to 16 days, using lean and looking at the processes and eliminating wasters and organizing themselves more efficiently. So that's very inspiring, because that's of course not only reducing waiting time for patients, which is critical in this instance, but the good thing here is that the hospital, in this case in Mid-Jutland, around where I'm sitting, they are thinking on behalf of the patient. And that's what Lean is all about. And that's what I'm hoping to inspire you to think, that who is on the other end of your products and services? That's the customer. And Lean wants to think on behalf of customer. And when the customer arrives at the hospital waiting to get into a scanning, even that is reducing non-value for the customer, being the patient in this case. So that's the good thing about this story, reducing waiting lists, but also quality by introducing standards of how to treat patients and how to treat cancer patients, flow of patients information, which is another major step of improvement you can gain from Lean, because you start examining how is actually the flow of information, and how often do you not, in this instance, hospitals have to give information from patient from one doctor to another, or from a nurse or other employees in the system. And that's one of the major wastes. We lose information and need to retrieve it. So looking into that on how to access information more accurately and fast has been one of their major takes in the hospitals. That's working with Lean administration, to give you these 3 examples. Sales and order offices in the industry is also one of the major success stories in Danish Lean administration. In this case, separate processes and teams were introduced to decrease alone expedition times. So this is a company that is producing water faucets. It's a company called Vola, which is north of Kolding in the Mid-Jutland. Vola is a product in a more expensive area. They have a large export. They discover that the expedition times throughout the customers was extensively. What happens is that their cash flow was suffering. So they were not able to retain money for their products when they actually was shipped out in a timely fashion, and that was an economical challenge for them. So expedition times, they needed to be decreased. Another thing they did was to process orders, customer data. They actually looked into the how they were maintaining data sheets for customers, and maintenance of that data and reducing errors in that data was reduced by 40%. And that gave them a totally different flow in handling orders, but also handling the process from orders into the steps towards production. And that was a very interesting thing to do. For instance, the production were able to pull out direct orders from the sales office when they had a specification on what to produce. And then they could take out from a queue, and that queue could be maintained. So that was giving you a couple of examples on Lean administrations and services. Why are they doing this? Because they actually start seeing that looking into reducing wastes, they are able to create a better cash flow, less maintaining, fewer errors, mistakes in handling customer requests. Yes, I will move on to the Lean principles, which is the basis and foundation of Lean. And hopefully, as I mentioned in the beginning, also a key thing to understanding, if you go down this road with lean administration and services, there is a recommended 5 principles that you will need to take into account. It was Warmack and Jones, the 2 Americans, who wrote the book, The Machine That Changed the World, that actually introduced the Western industry and services industry for the 5 lean principles. So Taishi Ono didn't mention this. And so this is a basis. It is a basis of understanding that if you roll out lean, you will need to address these 5 principles. Now, principle number 1 is, of course, the customer. So I've animated this, but what has value for the customer? Now, that means it is not necessarily about producing pens in many colors if the customer wants them dotted or would like a pen that is shaped like a glove. That's a funny example, but think about your own products. What is it that the customer actually wants? What is important to them? So that's the main thing. To understand the importance of being in a close dialogue to what the customer asks can generate an enormous amount of efficient production time. Because does the customer really need this specific color? Are you doing too much? Are you doing things that the customer do not really require? Do you have that in your service package? Do you have something in there that customers really don't want? And if you have that, you're not in close enough dialogue with the customer. So that's principle number 1. What creates value for your customer? That needs someone to talk to the customer. And being in a close dialogue with customer, also where you are sitting, is of course a key thing when you enter this world of lean. So that's principle number 1. The next one is remove non-value adding activities, which is exactly the sentence that Taishi Ono has given us. We need to identify the work processes, as I gave as an example. An order comes in, we start building a house. We start ordering materials, and now we start listing processes one by one. But many of these work processes do not create value. So in step principle number 2, you will start looking at what is adding value and what is not. And for that, you need to create a workflow diagram, a value stream mapping, also known as VSM, value stream mapping. That is listing the processes step by step, often by post-it notes, and listing those you now recognize. Oh, sorry, I'm just going back again. You're just recognizing what it has adding value, what is not. Do you have many transports? That's non-value. Do you change of responsibility throughout the flow? Non-value. Do you have a lot of warehouses where you keep up material and spare parts which is sitting and waiting? Non-value. Do you administrating and handle returns and complaints? Non-value. Do you have a lot of return and unnecessary activities? Non-value. So you keep on going till you get really tired of it. But this is an important step. You really know to understand what is value and what is not value adding. Now we move on to principle number 3. Principle number 3 is about creating a flow around those things that is actually adding value. So now you have taken some out. Now you have identified it. Now you do not want to interrupt people that is talking to the customer, actually putting in orders or returning drawings out to the production, actually adding value activities which you need to create a flow. And in order to do that, you will actually decrease the time of you handling an order. And that's what the purpose is. Creating flow is to handle those interruptions and making sure that things are flowing through, so there's no stops, waiting, interruptions in those activities that is actually adding value. People starting working on a trailer, do not stop them. People are started working testing the trailer for having the right quality, do not stop them in doing that, but make sure that things are ready when they are, the tools are there, the drawings are correct, that things have been checked before. All those things is about creating flow. You start up the computer in the morning. Now there's an update and there's 2 orders waiting. You need to put them on throughout the system. Now the computer needs to do a restart. Now you do not have flow. So when things comes in, you need to be ready and the systems needs to be ready. Tools, systems, IT, resources. So that's principle number 3. And number 4 is let the customer pull the goods through the production. So that's the principle about pulling. So Womack & Jones describes this as, in Lean we talk about both push and pull. When you push things through, I'll give you an example. There's a computer on the shelves at your convenience store. They are produced by Dell, let's say that, and they're just waiting for a buyer to come by. Now, the production at Dell is, in this instant, a push production. They're pushing PCs in their production to push them out on the shelves on a convenience store. Now, so that's a push production system because they do not know how many will be sold at the convenience store. So they start producing, they estimate things, but that's a push production. And might be what you call production where you have things on storage, either on shelves at a convenience store or shelves at a storage in a domestic country. Now, Dell, of course, has also introduced pull. A pull, by definition, is when an order comes in, we start production. That's the definition of pull. We do not have things on storage in the ideal world in Lean. And that means when you're order producing, like many companies are, production companies are, you will start even on your administration side only by pushing, starting production when the order comes in. Now, in the example of Dell, their pull system they introduced was a couple of years back, where you can order their PC on the internet, you can configure the PC, and you can customize things, and then you put in the order, like you do with many other products. Bicycles, in my case, I just order a bicycle, and in that case, the production of the PC and the bicycle starts when the order comes in. Now that's a pull system. And that means that you're sure that things in the production are not there unless somebody is ordering it or paying for it. That was principle number 4. And principle number 5 is strive for perfection. The name Kaizen, as we mentioned earlier, the continuous improvement, which is the magic word here. Continuous improvement for the better, where you on a daily basis always strive to maintain a good order, maintaining your your pull system, maintaining the flow, a rigid, constant attention towards minimizing waste on a daily basis. I've listed where does the tools apply that you will see today. in the different 5 principles: waste, to remove the non-value adding activities; 5S, which is about order, which we will discuss, is in number 3. Then you have Kanban and signals in number 4, and you have problem solving in principle number 5. Now let's get on with wastes. I will just look and see if they have any questions. We will now get a bit more practical in the session. I'm looking at you. Do we have any questions at this point? No. Jan, you okay?
I have a question, Peter.
Yes, go ahead.
You said when we look at processes, some of the processes, they are obvious.
Yes.
The other processes, they are probably hidden, we don't know if we waste of time or money there.
No.
How do we find these processes? How do we, I understand, of course, there should be kind of project in a company to define these processes. But practically, it's how to do.
Yes. What is a typical process, project in your case, Nadja?
Well, I work with strategy. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So in my case, we work kind of as a how should I say? I understand what you mean now, because of course we have a group of people, where we discuss, and then we agreed on some, let's say, what to do, what to investigate, and then we create kind of a project or timeline, what to research and when we should discuss next time. So probably it will be the same. Yeah.
Okay, Nadja, it's a good question, because you have some workflows where lean is very difficult to implement. And for instance, what you mentioned here, strategy, is a very difficult area, because that is the basis for something else. Do you understand? Yeah. And when you have strategy, which is a basis, or implementing an economical system, introducing SAP, whatever you're running, that is a basis of something that is allowing you to have a clarity or have a system where you can make pull, right? Those processes, those development works is very important, but very difficult to lean. Do you understand? But what your focus should be, working with strategy or implementing IT, is actually making the tools and the possibilities of having flow. For instance, in your case, clarity, right?
Yeah.
And for IT to make pull, or cleaning processes in storage facilities, so you don't get overwhelmed by your servers or get too hard load. That is difficult to lean, but as long as you go into a process where you actually see a customer being involved, right?
But not in all processes customer will be involved.
That's true, but then in lean we look at internal customers. And that means if you have an external customer at the end, Nadja, paying for everything, right? And on that way, you will of course have people like yourself delivering services to other parts in the organization internally in order for this to happen. And then you will have to see who is the next one in line, who is receiving the strategy at your end. That's your customer.
Okay.
And what does the customer require? Well, the management requires something specific about strategy. Employees require something different, maybe, when you communicate it. So internal customers is a good terminology in lean. It is aligning processes in order to understand who else up the road in our process to the customer do I need to serve best so flow is imminent or optimal. That's the word, optimal.
And one more question: how do you you said like you should always like check when you add value. You should check like
yes.
You check because you like ask customers, or because you see, I don't know, there could be increase or decrease of waste, like, or there are actually different mechanisms of KPIs.
Exactly. You do surveys, Nadja, and you talk to customers, and you gain information from instant sales, right?
By the way, sorry to interrupt you once again, because you just said ask sales. Sometimes we are asking sales with, and we kind of, is it always they are saying to us what actually value for customers, or it's their own understanding?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean here? Because sometimes it's different, but actually customer take as value, and what salespeople think
is a value. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So sales is what input you can gain because they are in close contact with customers often enough. But sales is also a starting point for gaining information, meaning people like yourself coming out with the sales force, asking questions that they do not normally do, but they will open the door for you. For instance, looking into customers that had one complaint too many, right? Let's say you discover this. Now you need to understand the value for the customer because you're not doing well at this part, which is normal. So you ask for a meeting, right? You ask for a meeting because you need to understand what is wrong. Are you being delayed? Do you implement the wagons differently? Were there expectations in another place, right? So those questions could be necessary for you, someone out of sales, to come in, join in, and open the door. Just to understand that it is key to have a very close dialogue with customers externally, first of all, but it could also be an interesting conversation you had with people in your own organization. How do you service each other? Why are people waiting for the strategy, an updated strategy? People are waiting for it. Where do you obtain the information? All these things are necessary thoughts for you to think. On behalf of the customer. That's principle number one. And if you have a long distance towards understanding customer value, embarking on a lean journey, this is where you start.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. Now, moving on, the most dangerous kind of waste is the waste we do not recognize. Shigeo Shingo, which is one of the thinkers into lean also, and at the same time, working at the same time, but in different industry as Taishi Ono. Well, a thinker about when you have waste, you will have to open your eyes. Nadja says here, maybe sales look differently at value that the customer does. Yes, and you will look, and you will note, you will experience if you start with lean, that it is a very hard discussion talking about wastes, because it has this negative approach to it. But it is a necessary thing to do. And we need to recognize it. So wastes has been adapted to administration. So let's have a look at them. Unnecessary processes and information retrieval. Now that relates to dual work, extra control, tasks that are not being solved. So you search for information. So you have unnecessary processes throughout the day where you can't find things. You need to control it. You're not sure that your colleague did it right. You're unsure of the quality, and now you need to check that as well. You keep going back to information. And that's a waste. So why are you in doubt? Now you need to solve that problem. So when you do a value stream mapping and list your processes, you will also on these lists see looking for information. And you spend a lot of time doing that. That's a classic. Maybe you recognize this and maybe you don't. But at this point, I think it could be interesting if you have a pen and paper with you. Do you? Throughout the presentation of the 8 wastes, please make a note. Do you see an example of these wastes in your day-to-day processes? If you have a deep look into yourself. So please make a note and we'll get back to your notes in just a little while. Unnecessary process and information. As I mentioned, dual work, extra control, search for information. So please make a note if you recognize this. The second one is transportation and change of responsibility. Unnecessary transport of data, information and task, meaning that it comes, there's a lot of shift of responsibility. Maybe not if you now change responsibility and need a colleague to take over from you because you need to address a customer visit. Let's take that as an example. Now you change responsibility and you interrupt your own flow and make somebody else do it. Now the other person has to get into the work because it's not, you don't have that awareness. You might not even have the competences. You might be in doubt and then ask other people about how to perform this task. So when you have these change of responsibilities, you are introducing a waste in the company because you are interrupting flow. You might think it's necessary for you to get on with your work. But how can you then the question is more like, how can you then optimize that change of responsibility or change over of of tasks? So that was number 2. Number 3 is waiting time and imbalance. Employees waiting for information and answers. And maybe you recognize this. You are waiting for something or making other people wait. And now there's an imbalance in things. Imbalance refers to employees that are being utilized inappropriately. An imbalance is a reference to people that doesn't have necessarily the competences, or at least is doubting if they have it, and are maybe afraid of making mistakes. Now this is an imbalance. Another imbalance is some people in your organization are very busy, like yourself, and others are not. Nadja looks down the office and sees Edina not doing anything, just thinking, drinking coffee. And Nadja is so busy. There's an imbalance. So Edina looks up the road and thinks, she's so busy, I should go and help her. That is actually trying to even this unbalance. So please have a think on that. Maybe make a note. Overserving is a really bad waste. And in lean administration and services, this is where you overanalyze, you overdo your tasks, you present your data, economical data. I'm looking at you, Edina. It has to be really beautiful, specific colors, and it needs to be animated. And you do a lot of things on your spreadsheets, but nobody but yourself is actually requiring this. They need specific data, and maybe you are actually overserving your internal customers and the customers externally. So that's one thing you could think about. Do you do that? Unnecessary participants in meetings. You put CC on emails to people you don't even know, but just to make sure. You're overserving your communication. Now, underserving is of course not good enough, But you need to find the balance. What are you doing that is unnecessary? What are the actual information, the key figures, Adina, that your internal customers is actually requiring? What are their expectations? That is understanding this waste. Maybe you have a thought or two on that one. Moving on, we have piles and storage. Maybe you have an example of that in your organization. Knowledge, data, and information is not available, and they are still in a mailbox piled up somewhere, and you start having a look at it. So storage is could be physically on desk, paper storage, file cabinets, physical stuff. But often enough these days it's digital, and but still piled up, and maybe not accessible or hard to find. That's one thing, but it takes out storage. It actually takes out what do you call it? It may be hard to find, and it's a bad habit in an organization to keep storing things and piling stuff up and having to look for it or moving other data in order to get room for your new data is one of the symptoms you see when you have piles and storage. Have a look at your own mailbox. I know mine is a big storage place. You're actually having maintenance on mailboxes and having IT actually doing cleanups and automated cleansing in servers and mailboxes is one of the things that you put into place when you work with piles and storage. Now you have errors. Number 6, returns and instability, sorting. Sorting corrections. You have returns from customers or errors. In a task you did, you made the wrong you forwarded the wrong drawing, you made a mistake in your figures, and you wrote something wrong to the customer, and you need to correct it. Those are errors and shows that you are unstable in your have too many variations. That means that Nadia might be writing in one form and having a layout in one way, but a colleague in another country might do it differently. Now you have variations, and which makes flow of communication confusing. So that's instability. And working with standards is one thing, that you agree on how to make spreadsheets, what numbers, how it looks like. One form counts for all countries is one way of working with this instability and making sure quality is high. So maybe you have a couple of examples there. Interruptions is number 7, unnecessary interruptions, like telephones, colleagues change plans, and now you have to make your flow of work task differently. So maybe you recognize this one. And the last one is unused knowledge, lack of use of employees that actually suggest, like the guy with the wheels at the wagon with the picture I showed you in the beginning. Exactly this, that you have people in the organization, and in your case it's a large organization, but just imagine the amount of competences and suggestions that are out there. When you're not using that knowledge and sharing your knowledge to other people in your organization, you're introducing the waste unused knowledge. Maybe you can think of a couple of examples there where you met and thought afterwards, whoa, why didn't I know? Why didn't you tell me? I should have known. And why didn't they tell me from?
You are thinking about break or? Isn't is it planned to have a break now, or?
It is
Edina,
planned.
it's a waste. We cannot afford it.
We cannot afford breaks.
Yeah, it's a waste. We should work.
Oh, Jan, I think Edina.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just very disappointed about a lot of waste in my job, in my work.
Okay.
So we'll have a lot of things to improve.
Okay. Let's have a 5-minute break, Edina. Okay. So let's shoot on afterwards. So let's meet here at 11 minutes past 10. So feel free to mute your microphone and have a coffee, and we'll meet in 5 minutes. Okay?
You just don't log out. Just stay here, right?
Yeah, the meeting will be open.
No, okay, but because I thought people can just stay, they can mute microphone, close video, and just stay.
Yes.
Okay. Or we can just chat here.
You can chat. It's all open. I will just go for a coffee. So 5 minutes, we start again.
Very good.
No, that was nice with a little break. Do you have free coffee in your Krone Scanbelt, Edina?
Yes, we do.
Oh, that's nice.
We are very thankful for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you okay by starting up again?
I think we should go on.
Yes, go ahead. I was just curious, we could put in some examples from you, maybe unmic your microphone and just an example or two on the 8 wasters. Natalia, what is the worst thing that you have noticed?
Yes, I have an example. Sometimes Tarmo asks me to send him some purchase invoice for the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time to find this invoice and to send it. And he is wasting time for asking
Yes.
for this invoice. So I think that I should save these invoices in some place where he could access these invoices in any time.
Yes.
So this some kind of example.
It is. It's a good observation, Natalia. And you have waiting time, but also an unnecessary process, right?
Yes, this is unnecessary process.
Yes, but often enough you will have, when you work with wasters, more than one in play at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you have, you can recognize, oh, it's both an unnecessary process. I have waiting time, and we make errors. We
Mm-hmm.
have free ongoing. It's time to do something. So good observations. Jan, you mentioned you had a couple of things on your sheet.
Actually, we have a lot of these processes. When you are coming to work and you are starting your daily, job, daily work, for example, it was, a case from today's morning, yeah?
Yeah.
We're coming to work and we're having problems with IT, and we are wasting our time, to send the info by Teams to our IT colleagues. And, even when we have this group chat, yeah, even the people who are not facing the problems, they see these problems, yeah, and they are disturbing themselves because they are reading something, And now we have a lot of these problems with the start of the war, we cannot send emails to Gmail, and it's crazy, yeah. And even if I do not have this problem, our other colleagues do have this problem, and I also disturb myself to read the problem and to see and to get this info, but not focus on the normal processes. So in our daily work, we have a lot of this waste. But for example, like Natalia said, the Tarmory is asking. We also had this problem. It's always problem, yeah? But we agreed that we will make a folder on Scanbelt network, and everybody who needs the info, bookkeepers are putting these invoices in that folder, and without any calls, the salesman can check this information by looking into that folder. Just sharing the information and the problem is solved. So this is
interesting.
Yeah.
You're already thinking like a lean consultant, Jan. You just introduced a pull system.
Yeah.
You see the benefit of a pull system. You have an information where people can access and pull the information when they need it.
Yeah, and it's comfortable for everybody.
Yeah, pull system in administration and services are really a game changer. Interesting input, Jan. Thank you for that.
I also actually thinking about this over-serving and transparency. It's really tiny boundary between, because if you not do these, like put people on CC, or sometimes like feeling like people don't have enough information, and then it's mean like we have lack of transparency. Yeah. And then if it's like you became really transparent, then it's like, then it can give too much like over-serving other people, you know. So sometimes I think it's so tiny boundary between over-serving and transparency.
Fair enough. And that's a balance to walk, of course.
And if I may add, maybe this receiving emails where we put people CC, it's very good example. Maybe I have a solution to that. What I have in my Outlook is that I have a special map only for emails where I'm CC on. So this is not my priority one. I'm focusing on where I'm directly receiver, and when I have time, I assume that when I'm CC on, then it can wait. So this is also one way to approach this.
It's a one way of approaching. That's one step. And another recommendation is actually giving feedback. Do we need this CC? Sometimes it's a culture that you have to make sure people are in, but maybe you should be able to access particular information in another way than having it in your inbox. Just a thought, Edina. But very good suggestions to overcome that you are being interrupted, because now you have an over-serving thing, an unnecessary process even, putting you on CC, but you're also introducing an interruption. But now you're handling the interruption. Am I not correct? But the root of the problem is somewhere else. Maybe it could be the culture in a large scale that needs to be addressed, that could solve some of these over-serving issues. Just a thought on this, but this is, you are making really good examples on how to use wastes as a inspiration to you and your colleagues to open the eyes for what is unnecessary, non-added value time. What I did additionally was to give you this. If you have your camera, as you see me, there's a book here, and I'm showing you. It's a book called The Lean Toolbox by John Bettino. Now, this guy, he made 7 service wastes, and we're not going into details of these service wastes. I'm just trying to inspire you that this is a way of adjusting wastes in the organization so it is more aligned to your organization. And this is what John Bettino is trying to tell us. For instance, if you are in a service business and you're serving other in the company and serving customers, delays, it's then specified, customer waiting, duplication, re-entering data is another waste. Then you have unnecessary movement. For instance, you let customers queue up different places. They call into your call center, right? Then they are in queue. When the queue stops, they get into another queue because they are being redirected. That's one example. I'm not saying that's the case, but queuing several times is a waste in services. Unclear communication, which I really must emphasize, you need this. We need it in all organizations, including my own. Waste of seeking clarification is one of the majors. Incorrect inventory, you're out of stock, but the information is not there. You're not able to pull it. You don't have the overview. You promise something that is not there in the organization, which is imminent at this hour, of course. Real issues with having inventory in place. I guess this is also a problem in your case. Opportunities lost, lack of retaining or winning customers. So that's an address to the sales organization also. But internally could be an interesting way of addressing it. Errors in service transactions, product defects, you get recommendations, you get complaints, and you get returns on products, which is the most expensive things that can ever happen. You deliver a wagon, and the wagon is full of defects. You get a return on it, and you put all your money in it and time spent, and now you see the error out at the customer side. And think of that as a really imminent threat to your cash flow. See waste is as a way of going out to the place where the waste is happening. Now, in administration, it also means going to each other places, having a look at how people actually work, how they look things up, how they push data, how they respond to mails, how they send mails, how they work their work processes, contact and talk to customers. All these things have to do with an interesting tool called Genshi Genbutsu, or just seeing waste. So when you go out, you have a list of your wastes that you have defined, and then you identify the problems, you reflect on it, and then you want to identify the root causes, which you already are starting to think, which is a natural way of thinking. You want to eliminate those problems. So here I've made to inspire you, if you walk down this road with Lean, this is a way of going forward. You describe the wastes, you give examples, and then you have your observation sheets on your right side where you can actually make notes. You could do it electronically or you could do it on paper. It's really not that important. The important thing is that you start seeing. You go out and you see. So I would like to recommend this exercise. It was called Genshi Genbutsu, Seeing Waste. And the picture I put in here for you is that you go out and observe. In this case, it's on a flow line and production line. But you could imagine that this is also could be administration, walking the talk with your colleagues, then reflecting, coming back with your observations. That's waste observation. We saw the picture of me with a Danish company with the net on my hair, the beautiful picture at the start, or the funny picture, if you like. That is the people participating in that course was actually out seeing waste. I was waiting for them to come back. And they had their sheets with it, exactly that sheet, out listing what did they see of waste. And we had a presentation, we listed them, we start working on solutions. That can happen in one day. And you get really far. You get your eyes opened up, you pick out the one that think this is real trouble on a daily basis. Like you mentioned, Jan, you have tons of it. You open your eyes and you take out what is the most important thing to address first and start working the problems. Let's talk improvements and how to work the problems. One of the tools is value stream mapping. And you already saw an example with Taishi Ono, where I listed, you get an order in, start building a house. Here you see a picture of a value stream mapping where you have, by post-it notes, listed different activities throughout a service process. That's what you do. You start looking people over the shoulder, you pick out a process, that could be a service process, and you start listing all the activities that actually happen in this process from A to Z. Now, the idea is to distinguish between what is adding value and what is not adding value. The Danish manufacturer of bathroom appliances, which I mentioned before, Vola, found that only one, this is over 16 years ago. So they have been on a lean journey for a while now. I've been to their factory and have some of their employees on lean courses a while back. So I know their story pretty well. Now, Vola make bathroom appliances, and they found that 1% of manufacturing their actually faucets for the bathrooms were adding value to the product. 1%. 1%. doing exactly this exercise. So this is where they actually form, mold the faucets, make tests, and you know what the rest of the time was? That was faucets waiting to be applied value, being formed, molded, and checked and tested. The rest of the time was actually sitting and waiting for somebody else to have time to process the faucets. One faucet took an average 63 days 16 years ago. Now it takes 6 days. 63 days to 6 days. That's the amount of benefit that you can expect to have from making value stream mapping. It is a tremendous value to actually look into what is waste, what is not waste. Now, imagine orders coming in on one of your products. It's got a trailer, a cooler wagon or ordinary setter wagon, and then a trailer axle. Can you imagine that? You have different products, right? Now, some of the processes are the same. Now you have to reply to the customer when the order comes in. You have to do invoices. You have to handle, communicate with the customer. But then also there are different approaches. Further down the line, you of course assemble things differently. You even produce them in different countries. But some of these activities are the same. And mapping even those service processes you have is called product families. And when you do a value stream mapping, you do a product family at a time. I'm going to give you an example. A product family on an official building case office in Copenhagen, which is 8 years back, they had, imagine you an official public office. They handle building cases like you apply to build a new house or restructuring a building or adding things to a building. You need that approved at the building case office. So it's a common office that people that build houses really hate because they really need their approvals fast, because people, if you want to start building. And of course, this office gets a lot of complaints from their customers, which is the Danish citizens in this case. Now, they had a functional organization 8 years back. Now, organization-wise, people were sitting in the same office doing journal mails, incoming mails, and journalizing things and pushing, not pulling, but pushing the case forward. They pushed it forward to engineering office where all the engineering sat, legal office where all the lawyers sat, architects where the architects, and then to administration doing the final invoicing, final communication, and putting things together. Now this is a functional organization, and that took them approximately 3 months to handle a case. Now they started working with Lean, so they investigated product families, and they found the following product families, which I hope can inspire you to think, what product families, like service families, do you actually have? And then organize yourselves differently. Now they decided to do product families where they found resemblance in processing applications, and then they put the right competences in those new departments. Product families were spare time houses, large reconstructions, extra extensions on buildings, new buildings in local plan areas, and special cases like daycare centers where you have to have specific attention to fire hazards and safety. So now they have made product families, because these cases, when they come in, they are now being rediverted down a river where this organization now being organized after families, they pull out their cases and start working on them. And they reduced their lead time from up to 3 months to 14 days, which was quite incredible on this office. Now, this is what I mean by product families. This is also known as service families. So the open question to you guys is, what could an organization in service family look like in your company? That's the open question for you. I don't think this is a very big question. So I'm not, I'm trying to inspire you about thinking a way of organizing your work, which is a tool into Lean. When you start doing value stream mapping, you need to understand what services look alike. And that will open your eyes to a very efficient world. So that's what I wanted to tell you about value stream mapping and making service families. And it meets a totally different organization. That is maybe not within your power, but that could be in your thoughts and mind for the future. You're probably organized that in a similar way, but think about this. You have similar processes throughout your organization because you're divided into different factories, right? Assemblies. But they're doing similar stuff. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that you can actually do trailers somewhere else? Yes, you can. But it's difficult because you're spread out. But nevertheless, service families will imagine that you're now servicing the different factories from service families, and they're working in a different organization, actually providing and pulls out orders from a service family. Could be where the services look alike.
Peter, yep. I have a question.
Yes.
Isn't look more this kind of example, this case, it's like for big organization? Because like in our case, if you go back to slide before, it was this family, product families. Because in our organization, we have some functionalities, but we also like matrix organization. We have people, if you go to this organization in product families, so we have people who could be, let's say, like here, like spare time houses, one person could be there, and then this person could be in extra intake extensions on buildings. So in our case, I think we already have, but it could be also stressful because then suddenly a person involved in many different activities, you know. But I got a point. It's really good to consider, you know, like instead of to define everything in silos. So make like product families, you know, where people have same goal, you know, like same, I don't know,
yeah, and have same kind of challenges.
Yeah, also.
And they will experience the same type of wastes. And in that sense, you inspire each other. But it's a good question, Nadja, and good comment, because reorganizing according to service families is a major task. It's a major task. So that took the official building office over 2 years to do. So that's the time span, all right? But the benefit is enormous. How do they actually what do you call it? How can you look at it from an organizational perspective? If you reduce and you have experience by reducing minimum half of your service time and lead time with products by doing service families and value stream mapping. Now you can start the calculations. Edina, now it is time for the spreadsheet. Now you look into if it takes you 2 hours to level a wagon, and you can now go into 2 months, and you can reduce things to 1 month. What would that do to your cash flow? What would that do to the actually resources working on one thing and to the interruptions that is taking place during the 2 months compared to 1 month? That is the calculation. And is that an investment in an organization? Is that worth it going into this work over the next 2 years? Yes. Within 1 year, you will have
It's remind me a little bit. It's go from traditional project management to kind of Scrum or Kaizen or yeah.
It is it's important to think of functional organization, as I put it, as where you put people with same competences in the same room.
Yeah.
So everybody with the booking sitting with Adina, everybody with the strategy is sitting with you, Nadia. But why you organize this way? That's the way that Lean wants you to think about on behalf of the customer. You need to service the customer, not because it's convenient to have all the competences in one place. It's a way of organizing yourself that is under the question here. I know this is a big task, but I'm mentioning it because it's a huge benefit. So this is about organizing. Let's move on. I'm trying to make this work. That's the wrong one. There you go. Let's go to problem solving. I'm hoping to now. I've made it like this in my presentation, that imagine you're doing a value stream mapping. You have thought about service families. You find things that I think really value to investigate. And now you see problems on your value stream. Okay. Now you want to solve these problems. And then I want to show you the tools that you can use for that or by itself. So now I want you to think about this exercise. It's a problem. So see, I present this to my participants on courses. I give them time to think. This is a problem that has come up. Here in Denmark, we have Hans Christian Andersen. I have 4 books on my shelf just behind me. Those are the fairy tales. The total number of pages in each volume of the 4 books is exactly 2 centimeters. Okay, you got that? Now, each volume is 2 centimeters thick, and the cover leaves, you know, the cover leaves, they are 0.25 centimeters thick. Now, the problem is the bookworm, as you see. The bookworm, annoying bookworm up here, is starting to eat through my books. Now, I want to know how far does the bookworm gnaw or eat its way when it starts on page 1, volume 1, and ends on the last page in volume 4. That's the problem I would like you to solve, testing your problem-solving skills. So whenever you're ready, please in the chat, give me your figure. How far does the bookworm actually gnaw when it starts on page 1, volume 1, and ends on the last page in volume 4?
I have more creative answer because I think it will never happen. I read these books and then they will be removed from shelf, you know.
That's right. I have to take it away. But do you have a number on the?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Anyone has a number? Please write it in the chat so we can all see. Christine and Sigurd's 9.5, which is not correct. Christine and Sigurd, maybe you can adjust that a little bit, but let's have another number whenever you're ready. in the chat? Edina now, 9. 10, Jan. You have the longest journey. The bookworm is tired after 10 centimeters. Jan is writing something. He's got another thing coming, I think.
It's
okay.
9. I say 9.
Counting, thinking.
Okay.
It's 4 books, and then it's everyone. It's 2 centimeters. Then time 2. It's 8. The cover leaves 0.25, so it's 4 books.
Yeah.
But cover leaves. Then it's like, is it only on front or it's also behind?
Well, now remember you could think of remembering. First of all, Tamo, do you have a suggestion? I think you have the right answer. Tamo is writing, maybe. It's a good thing to start discussing the problem. You mentioned that when we discuss problems in Lean, we would like to be out at the point where the books are, right? For that's where the problem is. And look at the bookworm. Now, the best we can do in this case is actually point with this laser point. And then I'm asking you, where is the first page, page 1 in volume 1?
It's after the cover leaves, right?
Yeah, but where? Is it here?
Yeah.
No, it's here.
Yeah, you're right, because it's, yeah, exactly.
This is page 1. Can you see the book standing there? If you take the book out of the shelf and open it, you have page 1 here. Now it has to go through 1 cover leaf, 2 cover leaves, right?
It's, yeah, it's just a tricky question.
It's a tricky question. That's 0.5.
Yeah.
Then it has to go all through volume 2. That was 2 cents, so that's 2.5 through there again. Now we have 3. There we have to go all the way through volume 2. That's 5. And through, where's the last page on volume 5? Is it here or here? Yeah. The actual answer is 5.5 centimeters. So just a little exercise, a fun exercise is when you jump into working problems, right? You start getting ideas and you look at it in a way that you normally would solve problems, like you just start adding up numbers, thinking that, oh, there are 4 volumes, I need to bring them all in. But with a closer study, going out to the books and examining where's actually the problem, where is the bookworm, we start seeing other things.
So we need to define a problem before we start to solve it, yeah?
Yes, exactly. And you have to go out there.
This case is not correct. It's a bad example. You know why? If the worm is starting to eat the first book, it comes to nothing. So the figure should be different, because the worm should get back if he wants to eat book number 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you agree?
No.
If it's still strange, yeah, then it's like, why should he goes back and eat the second one and third and fourth?
I think the bookworm goes right here on the first page on volume 1 and goes directly into the cover pages.
Oh, okay.
And it's right here. But Jan, anyway, whatever we do when solving problems, we need to discuss, right? And we need to listen to each other. And now you came up with ideas, you give in the numbers, and you start working on it. But you will find that looking at the bookworm, the problem was different. So you need to define it and start looking at it. That's the, if you agree or not, Jan, but that's the that's the idea of this exercise anyway. Okay, so that was the bookworm. So what is the problem? The problem in lean sense is the distance between now and how it should be. And Jan, when you explain, it should be different. We should be pulling things in, right? Now there's a gap from you, right? And that's problem solving in lean. We want it to be something different. Let's close the gap. And for that, we need to understand the cause of this of the problem or the solution. Problem solving in lean is you see symptoms, typically wastes that you acknowledge in your waste seeing workshops, and you go out, you see a lot of symptoms, things that annoy you in day to day. Then you see the cause of things. You need to examine the cause and then find a solution. So that is a structured approach to problem solving, which lean will offer you. And there are a couple of tools for that. So you distinguish between symptom, which is often a waste, a cause, which is the cause of why this problem has actually emerged, and then you look to a solution in order to remove this cause, and then you eliminate the symptoms. There you go. A little reminder of a time that has just passed. Okay. First tool that examines the causes is the fishbone diagram. And maybe some of you have heard of this before. It has actually a origin from Japan and is described first time by Kairo Ishikawa, hence the name Ishikawa diagram, or as we mention it here, fishbone diagram. And obviously it looks like a fishbone. So it's a very Japanese tool. And what Kairo Ishikawa discovered working from Kawasaki shipyard was that understanding the cause of a problem is, of course, as you mentioned, Nadia, that you need to find the problem description and understanding the problem first. So when you examine a problem, you use the fishbone diagram on each bone here to list causes that is related to something that is a family in the fishbone. We divide these families by default into methods, materials, machines, IT, employees, environment, and management. And what we do with this fishbone diagram, which is really cool, is that when we list causes, we are now examining that this cause has this effect on the problem. Now, methods is ways of working. Materials are what we use to work with. Machines and IT is, IT systems and IT machinery that we use on our daily basis. So imagine we have a problem with getting our, please repeat the, Jan, could you repeat the problem you had with the invoices you mentioned?
Actually, it was maybe information flowing. Invoices were produced, were coming to our company, but only bookkeepers knew when these invoices are coming. Yeah, the salesman didn't knew about that.
So
and every time they were asking.
Okay. Now we see the problem is information flow, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can read this. I've written over here, which is a bad hand script, but we see the problem is information flow. Now, methods is a way of working, Jan, right? This is a way that it could be a standard, a process that we use to ship information on. What do you think in methods in the day-to-day work is causing information flow problems? That's the question for you.
Maybe somebody is not sharing the information.
Yes, okay. So we put sharing in here. Yeah. Okay, so I listed here at the fishbone because it's related to methods, right? Now let's go down the fishbone and employees. Employees is like you and your colleagues, people working in the organization. What is their influence on the problem?
People are wasting each other's time to ask for information and disturb their job.
I write disturbing people's job. Now we go up the fishbone again. Materials are related to things that we work with. Materials could be paper or standards and things we use in order to fulfill our tasks. It's a PC board, it could be IT, it could be the actual system, not the machine, but the system that you use. That's a material for you to shift information around. Could you think of a cause from this bone materials that is causing the problem on information flow?
It could be use of different maps, yeah, Jan?
Different maps?
Yeah, like there are no like common map to put in, could be.
I mean, maybe, for example, somebody is looking into Navision, somebody is not looking into Navision. I mean, bookkeeping program, let's say.
Okay. Now we're getting input here. Using this structure and on each bone, we are now discussing what under materials, methods, employees, environment, management, machines, IT is causing this problem. Now we get a structured approach. Not that any of these, all the fish bones here are actually equally important, but it gives us a structured approach to give input to what causes the actual problem. That's how we work with the fishbone diagram. It's causes and effect. Which of these causes out here on the fishbone causes this effect? So that's how you read it. And the fishbone diagram is a really effective tool in order to solve problems in a structured manner. Yes? That's the fishbone diagram. Now I'm going to show you a film. Are you ready? You need to pay attention. I'm stopped sharing the PowerPoint presentation and I'm now sharing a video instead. And I'm including sound over your PC, so you should be able to hear the voice. If not, please let me know. I'm sharing a video on Jefferson Memorial, which is a introduction for you on a tool called 5 times why. And now you will see how 5 times why is used to find the root cause of a problem that is at the were at the Jefferson Memorial, I think over 20 years ago. So are you ready? I just need to start this video.
Between night and day.
And I'm starting from scratch. Did you hear the sound at this point? Good. I'm going full screen, and then I'm going to start the video from scratch.
Sometimes the difference between jumping to conclusions and finding creative solutions can be the difference between night and day. To shed some light on the subject, let's spend a quality minute with Howland Blackiston.
In Thomas Jefferson's time, patriots defended our nation's capital from the invading British. More recently, the Park Service had to defend the Jefferson Memorial from invaders of another sort. The stone in this building was crumbling. What could be causing this decay? It turns out that it was actually the frequent washings of the stone that was creating the problem. The reason they washed it so often was because there were so many bird droppings on the building. Then they asked themselves, well, why are there so many birds in the building? There's an abundant food supply. Hundreds and hundreds of little fat spiders. So then they asked themselves, why are there so many spiders? The spiders were attracted by the midges, thousands of tiny little insects. So they asked themselves, why are there so many midges? Every evening at dusk, millions of these midges emerge in a mating frenzy. Also, at the same time every evening, the National Park Service turns on the powerful spotlights that illuminate the monument. Well, the excited midges are attracted to the light. The solution? The Park Service has delayed the daily lighting of the structure to 1 hour after sunset. The midge population is down 90%, they've broken the food chain, and there are less frequent washings. So, make sure you're working with all the information and get to the true root cause of the problem. The results can be literally night and day. For Duran Institute, I'm Howland Blackiston with another Quality Minute.
På industriens linje
Peter, we can't hear you. Unmute. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So going back to the presentation, Jefferson Memorial. I made a slide for you showing you how to use this tool. Now, we discovered a problem because the stones were crumbling. Now, using 5 times Y, which is a tool for getting down to the root cause of a problem and used in Lean as a supplement to the actual fishbone diagram. Now you get some answers throughout the video, and what happens is that you put the why in front of every answer. So the first answer is there's a lot of cleaning in the building, and then you answer, why is there a lot of cleaning in the building? There are many bird droppings on the building. Then you ask, why are there so many bird droppings in the building? So every time you have an answer, you use why in front of that answer for the next questions. And that is in order to get down and get as much information as you can in order to get to the root cause, in this case, that the insects were attracted to the light that illuminates the building. And the last question you then answer is, how can you then prevent that the light attracts to and illuminates the building in the evening, because that's the root cause of the thousands of small insects in the building. So that's how you work with this tool. Get down to the root cause, and then you find the solutions. Because if you don't, you have a tendency to solve problems eliminating the symptoms. So you have to understand why. In order to understand some of the causes of the information flow, you need to investigate some of these causes more in detail. And then you use 5 times Y in order to do that. There was the little baby. Well, Tidy up is the headline for the next tool, and the last tool we will make at this inspiration session. It's called 5S, and it's about tidying up, of course. Tidying up so we don't have to look for things. And where are they? Oh, I think it's somewhere. That's what it says here on the drawing in Danish. 5S is about tidying up, and once again, it's a tool of structuring things that you get down to the bottom of things. Not only cleaning up, using IKEA to buy boxes and cupboards, but it's also to make sure that after you've done that, you maintain self-discipline. In Lean, you will have the advantage of the statement. It's a working place, and in the working place is not the order that you might think is the right order. What you think is a clean desk, a clean server, how to find documents is of course different from all of us. But in Lean, you work with standards, and 5S would eventually get you to a standard on how we should maintain order and structure in order to find things in our business. So it is sorting things, put system in things, you systematically clean, you standardize, and then there's self-discipline. 5S's in order to get all the way through in the organization to maintain that self-discipline, but first standardize and putting forward how things should look. Not like this, but like this. Now we have standardized the where the tools are hanging in this place. We have had small labels on where these tools should be. Here's a clean structure where you can find these assets, spare parts in this case. In administration, it can look like this, right? In the old days maybe, but just thinking about how your PC and computer look like, and it might look like this as a metaphor. What we want is a more clear system where you can actually find things. Eliminating some of the wastes of having space, storage, unnecessary processes like looking and finding things, creating another waste called waiting for something. So it makes very good sense introducing 5S in an organization. It's about order and tidiness, and it applies to that when you have an overview into a maps in your systems, that you actually is easy to find that things are tidy and the system is recognized. Not only your search function is well organized, but you also have maps in a structure, and you have self-discipline to putting things in that particular spot. And you have standards for how, when you clean things up, delete things or put things on an archive. So when you look into maps, it's fresh and updated. So that's the example. And now my time is up. And we will miss a little exercise in numbers game. I'm just looking at you. And looking at you and thinking you need to go for lunch and start working on other things.
It was really good and interesting. I thought after you showed this last this picture of screen. Yep. I think it's also like we are people, we get used to things, and sometimes it's look like the rule. It's really like if someone look at my screen. But for me, it's everything in order because I know what lay in what map. But of course, I understand also the slide or screen beside that. It also look nice, but I think it will take me a longer time to find what I need in the. But it just we get we have to get used to it
It's what Lean can provide you is is standards.
Yeah.
The standards of having order and structure is the pillar of 5S, and it's nothing personal. It's not to be to point fingers at you, Nadia, or Dina and Jan, because you start arguing on how to find things. I think this is the best order. No, it's finding the common order.
Yeah, I also see all these tools and systems. They should support us. Of course, it's not like we have to work on them, but they have to support our work and our.
Yeah, that's a good statement. And that so when you find that structure, then you standardize it, and then you follow up on the standards, and then you talk about when that fails, instead of talking about when each individual fails.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Very yes. It was informative, and I think we have something to work with.
Okay. That's nice to hear. Any other comments on the last note here before we?
I was really impressed with these 5 questions of why. I had heard about it, but I didn't really know how to form the question. And this is a brilliant idea to form the question, just putting the why in front of the answer. So that's really a good tool to use. So.
Yeah. And you get information.
Yes.
It is, Christina, perhaps the most annoying tool in Lean, the Lean toolbox.
Oh, I like things like that.
Because
finding the cause, you know.
Yes.
That's very important.
But a good tip is that when you see a problem, you have somebody like yourself interviewing somebody, a colleague that has the knowledge and information about the problem and the area.
Exactly.
So you come from the outside and start asking questions. That's how the tool works.
A great tool.
Okay. So as mentioned, I will stop the recording in just a little while, and then I will put the link in for the recording session. It will take a couple of minutes to generate, but when it's done, I will send the link in your mail invitations, which I use for your invitations, and then I will put in the material as a PDF file as well.
And Peter also sent to people who didn't participate today, also send to them, please.
Yes, all the people on the list, the original list.
Thank you.
So
very good, Peter. I also must add that this was very inspirational, and thank you very much for this very good session.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and don't hesitate to write me if you have any further questions, or you think you should meet up and discuss some of the tools in more detail.
Thank you.
I will be at your service.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.